Hey guys, it's Ashley Francis with Blue Sage Counseling and Wellness, and today I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting and mental health. There is a lot of information out there about the health benefits of intermittent fasting, but I wanted to focus particularly on the mental health benefits when we engage in this type of eating scheduling. So what I'm going to cover today is just a basic overview of what intermittent fasting is, the different types, the overall health benefits. Then we're also going to focus on the specific mental health benefits, how to get started, and I'm also going to provide some personal information about why I have chosen this type of eating schedule and how it's been going so far. So let's jump in. To clarify, intermittent fasting is not a diet. It is simply a time-scheduled eating. And there's different variations of this. It's basically an umbrella term that encompasses meal timing schedules that cycle between periods of consuming calories and not consuming calories. Clear, plain, and simple, that is what it is. Now, there are some folks out there that prefer a fasting method where they eat absolutely nothing. They will drink water, sometimes tea, coffee for days on end, and this is strictly fasting. What we're focusing on is the intermittent fasting, where you're actually able to allow yourself to consume calories in between the fasting periods. Okay, so let's talk about the three different types. One is alternate day, the next is periodic, and then the third is the time-restricted feeding. So the alternate day basically is that for one 24-hour period, you allow yourself to consume calories, and then the following 24-hour period, you do not allow yourself to consume any calories. Again, liquids are permitted. And there are different variations of this. The second being periodic, that's when you do the whole day fasting for more than 24 hours. So one of the most common plans for this is the 5-to-2 ratio, where 5 days on, 2 days off. 5 days you're consuming calories, 2 days out of the week you are not consuming calories. And you can either do those 2 days consecutively, or you can break them up at any point during your week. Again, there are all kinds of variations out there. This is just an example. And then the third being the time-restricted feeding. So you're eating during a certain amount of time during each day, such as the 16-to-8 plan. So you've got 16 hours where you are fasting, not consuming any calories, and then you've got an 8-hour window where you do allow yourself to consume calories. This is the method that I have chosen, and it has thus far been quite effective, and it is recommended that most people at least start there because it's kind of the easiest to be able to transition into, although it is not easy, I will tell you that. Okay, so why do people do this? Why do they put themselves through all this torture? Because there's super good benefits, and it doesn't take long to be able to start experiencing some of these benefits. I can attest to that. So, for example, the American Heart Association recognizes intermittent fasting as ways to produce weight loss, reduce insulin resistance, and reduce the risk of cardiometabolic diseases. Also, a 2019 review found that intermittent fasting may help with obesity in that it burns more fat, insulin resistance once again, it reduces high blood pressure, and it also reduces inflammation. I think that the reduction in inflammation is by far one of the most advantageous aspects of intermittent fasting because that's where we experience most of the mental health benefits, and we'll get into that here shortly. Also, some added benefits is that it helps your body to engage in an internal cleanup of your cells. As your cells are dividing, they are giving off toxins. They are releasing all the bad stuff that you have inhaled, ingested, taken in through your pores and your skin. There's all kinds of things that we are exposed to on an everyday basis. And what the intermittent fasting does is it helps to enhance that process of our cells being able to break down and remove the toxins from your body. And this also results in our minds being able to perform better. We also feel more energetic and clear-headed. The name of that process is autophagy, Autophagy. autophagy. That's a fun one. And it also prevents the spread of some diseases and slows down aging. This is also another great benefit of that autophagy. It helps to improve your quality of sleep overall. It may take some time to get there, but it is an added benefit. And it also helps to reduce anxiety and depression. And I also want to mention that fasting is a practice that is done in certain religions like Jainism and Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity. There's all kinds of other functions to fasting as well. The one that we're talking about today is strictly for health benefits. Now let's jump into some of the specific mental health benefits of intermittent fasting. It helps to improve memory. The Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietitians found that in a 4-week study, participants' performance on working memory task and working memory capacity increased significantly. And another study found that learning and memory were improved in animals. So one of the things that I found in my research is that the research on intermittent fasting, unfortunately, is kind of limited. Many of the studies that have been performed have been done on animals, specifically mice. So we've got good information, but of course there is a little bit of a drawback in it only being focused on animals and not being focused on humans. So I want to make that clear, is that a lot of the evidence is a little short-sighted, but there is enough evidence out there to support the benefits. The second is that it lifts mood. So another study after 3 months found that fasting helps to improve your mood. It reduces tension, anger, and confusion, and it's also been found again to reduce anxiety and depression. Next is that it increases blood flow to the brain. So this is particularly important when it comes to mental health, because brain images of those who struggle with things like depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, traumatic brain injury, substance abuse, those who have suicidal thoughts, all of these folks will show a reduction in blood flow to the brain. So this leads us to believe that sufficient blood flow to the brain results in lower mental health symptoms. And there again, we were talking about the inflammation. It's typically when the inflammation has been reduced that allows that blood flow to be more successful, which results in a reduction in mental health symptoms. And also, poor blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease as well. So intermittent fasting is tops when it comes to preventing brain disease as well. And then the biggest thing is fat loss. So what studies have shown is that actually having excess fat is associated with a greater risk for depression, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, agoraphobia, which is the fear of going outside, as well as addictions. So these studies have specifically been shown to find that there are reductions in these types of symptoms in mental health. Let's talk about how to get started. So first and foremost, you always want to check with your physician. You want to make sure that intermittent fasting is a good choice for you. It is not for everybody. So examples of folks that are going to be excluded from this are women who are breastfeeding or pregnant. Also, those who have issues with insulin can become problematic for those with diabetes. And then also those with eating disorders or a history of eating disorders as well. There's a lot of things that are going on during intermittent fasting when it comes to hunger signals that can be problematic for those that struggle with eating disorders or even just relationships with food. So I don't think that the literature out there puts enough emphasis on how much a person with eating issues and not even just disorders could be a potential problem. So I would venture to go as far as to say that if you have issues with food, period, you really want to take this with a grain of salt, and you really want to make sure that you're working with a professional before you engage in this. But one of the added benefits is that it can in fact help you improve your relationship with food. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed for myself is that it helps you be able to distinguish your hunger signals from other things like being bored or if you're just simply thirsty. A lot of times we're just so on autopilot that we're not even thinking or recognizing that what we really need is just some water, or what we really need is just to find a hobby. We're just going to food out of habit or out of boredom. So when you're on a time restricted schedule, you have to be very, very mindful of what it is that you're putting in your body, what time, the types of foods, how it's going to make you feel. You're super aware of all of those things, which is a really good thing. But there again, you want to take this with a grain of salt. If you have some issues with food, you definitely want to make sure that you've got some backup and some good support. The next is to choose a plan that works best for you. So as we talked about, there are several different options for you to choose from. I'd like to encourage you to try maybe 2 or 3 of them before you settle on a specific one. If you're finding that you're jumping into the 5-2 schedule, eating for 5 days and then not consuming calories for 2 days, if that's too restrictive for you, you might want to start with the 16-8. Again, that's the one that's recommended to start with. It's the one that I've been using. I can tell you that it is not without difficulties, that's for sure. But compared to the others, I have found that this one has been the most beneficial for me. And you definitely want to pick a plan that you're more likely to stick with in the long haul. One of the drawbacks of intermittent fasting is that there is a pretty high dropout rate because it is hard to stick to, and it's kind of hard to live life. But once you make it a habit, which typically takes about 3 months, that 90-day mark, it starts to become definitively easier to incorporate it into your life because by then it's become a lifestyle. So that's an important point too. Consistency and patience. These are really, really important in this process. There again, it takes about 3 months to see the true results. This is for the weight loss. You start to see that a little sooner. But as far as the improvements in cognition and memory, but also just being able to, for your body to really reap the benefits of that autophagy and getting the cells to kind of regenerate and clean your body out and get the toxins out, it kind of takes a long time to be able to get to that optimal period. So that's why you got to really stick it out. And there again, you're gonna be dealing with these hunger pangs. It's going to be annoying. I do understand that it's easier for some people than others, but it will get easier. They do say that it takes about 2 weeks to really get used to it and about a month before it's not problematic. You're not feeling the hunger pangs to the point of wanting to die because it freaking sucks. Another thing is meal prepping. I've definitely found that this helps tremendously, just not only with intermittent fasting, but also with any sort of diet or just trying to be more conscious of what you're eating. What I like to do is do my grocery shopping and do a good bit of cooking on Sundays. That way all of my food, or a majority of my food, is already made and it's easier to make good choices. I've always been so resistant to meal prep. Just the thought of taking up hours out of my weekend to go grocery shopping, do all the cooking, doing all the cleaning up, is so tedious. I never wanted to do it. And now I've tried it. And I can't say that I'm totally in love with it, but it's helped. It's definitely helped to be able to focus on other things throughout the week. And now that I've been able to sort of reap the benefits, it's starting to be more reinforced. Like I said, I don't have to think as much about what I'm going to eat. It's easier to make good choices. And now that I can see in the long run, it actually works better for me. So I'm starting to come around. And the last thing is accountability and support. So one of the things that I have been doing is doing some heavy research just on the studies that are out there, but also just talking to other people that have done it and are doing it. And I think that has actually played a bigger role in inspiring me, but also keeping me on track, is just to see what other people are going through, seeing how difficult it is for them, but also getting inspired by their success stories. Some good resources are Reddit and Quora. Those are good forums to just kind of read up on people's personal stories, and they have personal questions that you're likely to have as well. Also joining a Facebook group or just a support group for things that are around your relationship with food. If you do have issues with food, Overeaters Anonymous might be a good support group to go to, and that could also accommodate or accentuate your intermittent fasting journey. And that is about it. That's about it for as far as the information. So I want to talk a little bit about why I chose to go the intermittent fasting route and how it's going so far. So I started about a week and a half ago. So I think I've been on it for about 10 days now. As many of you know, I had set out on a journey to get healthier about 2, maybe 3 years ago. I was 307 pounds and I have since lost 85 pounds, but I hit a stall earlier this year. And then COVID hit, and then I gained 10 pounds like everybody else. And I've been feeling stuck. Wasn't feeling really good about myself. But I also knew from past experience that I needed to do something, some sort of regimen, some sort of plan to get me out of this plateau, to get this excess weight that I've already gained back off. And I knew that it was going to take something that was regimented, because just trying to watch what I eat or just simply be mindful of what I eat, that crap don't work. It just doesn't work. So I knew all along that I was going to have to get back on a regimen, because that's how I lost the weight in the first place. I'm not one of those people that likes to write down what they eat. I think that's annoying. It doesn't work for me. It works for plenty of other people, but it doesn't work for me. I would rather follow a plan that forces me to be mindful. And I think that intermittent fasting has been good so far, because it just forces me to be mindful. I only have 8 hours a day that I can eat. So I have to really plan out what it is that I want to eat and when I want to eat it, to make sure that when I hit that fasting window, that I'm not going to be hungry, or you're going to be hungry, but not going to be starving. I can tell you that the first week was awful. It was really bad. I had all of the symptoms that you're trying to avoid, which are the headaches, the insomnia, the irritability. I started to get lightheaded. And so I started to play around with things. There again, this is the most important part, is to figure out what's a plan that works best for you. I did read that there are some suggestions to maybe not go into the 16 hours, maybe start with 12 hours of fasting and then build up to 14, then build up to 16. So in retrospect, I actually wish that that's what I would have done. I think that it would have been easier to make that first week transition easier. So another thing that I found too is, as we were talking about the thirst, oftentimes I have been feeling hungry, but I was really thirsty. And I remember there was one day last week where there was an exception to that, where I just drank a ton of water, trying to get rid of the faintness, the dizziness. And I knew I just was not in a good space. Like something needed to happen. Drank all this water, it didn't help. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to eat something. So I had a banana, a piece of cheese, and a couple of sweet potato chips. And the biggest thing was I wasn't able to sleep. I'm like, this sucks. I got to do something. And so I ate something and immediately I fell asleep. So that's a really big point there too, is that if you are, if you're feeling anxious, or if you feel like you're getting really depressed, or the hunger pangs are just making you feel faint or dizzy, Lord, just eat something. Just eat something. Don't try to be a hero. This stuff is hard. It's hard because there's a lot of things that are happening on the cellular level that you can't see, but you can certainly feel it. There's a whole lot of things that are changing, especially if you have been used to eating a very fatty diet. I had been drinking more alcohol really than I prefer to. So I think my body's also been going through a detox to just get all of the alcohol out of my body. And it's been a while since I've done a cleanse. It's been like a year since I've done a cleanse. So I had all kinds of stuff floating around. And I think that also contributes to how difficult it has been. But this week I'm doing better. I'm definitely doing better. I'm still feeling the hunger pangs. I don't feel like I'm where I need to be quite yet, but it's more manageable. I do find that I don't eat until 12 p.m. So in the morning hours, it is difficult to get things done. Like I don't want to expel too much energy on things that are like requiring me to think too hard. So I find myself kind of avoiding things. So that's something that I need to pay closer attention to and find a solution for. I also have been continuing to exercise. I like to do HIIT training at least 3 times a week. That includes weights And then I do 2 days a week of Pilates or walking, something that's more low impact. And I've had to pull back on that because I definitely don't have the energy. But I will say that the second week, this week, I've been better. I'm not back to where I want to be, but the biggest thing is just giving yourself permission to pull back if you need to. But if you're in the opposite position where you don't work out very much, I wouldn't recommend jumping into a fierce workout regimen while you're intermittent fasting. It's something that you want to build back up to. But everything that I've read says that once your body gets used to it, you should be able to return to your normal workouts, and you'll actually be more efficient at them as well because you don't have all that sluggishness, holding you down. So that's been my experience thus far. My goal is to lose another 50 pounds. I know that's lofty, but that will get me in the healthy weight range, and that's where I want to be. And then I don't know if I'm going to make this a lifestyle yet. I'm still tossing that around. I think I should. I think I could, but I don't know yet. But regardless, in order to hit my weight loss goals, but also to manage my anxiety and depression, I can tell you already that my anxiety is significantly lower. I don't feel depressed at all. I do feel clearer, but not all the time, because during the fasting periods, it's hard to think, but it is getting better each day. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Have you ever tried intermittent fasting? Have you considered it? What are the things that scare you? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, give this video a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, subscribe to our channel. Take care.